Welcome everybody. You've got me today and not Haley. She is exhausted from all of this safety training and needed a day off. No, it's really just her anniversary, so we'll give her that. So I say buckle up because there might be some turbulence with me in the driver's seat, but everybody come on in. We're gonna get you out of here as soon as possible so you can go and enjoy this beautiful weather that we're having out there. And with that said, I'm gonna go into the spiel that Haley gave me to make sure that we are all on track. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Mass MEP webinar series, the ABCs of Returning Safely to Work. This series is presented by Safety Trainers, and today is episode 5, the final episode. I didn't know I needed to do all of that to disinfect and clean safely. I'm Christy Grignon, Marketing Director with Mass MEP, and I will be your moderator for this webinar. We also have Matt Healy, Information Technology Manager with Mass MEP behind the scenes, and our panelist today, as always, is Darcy Cook, owner of Cook Professionals Resources, Inc., DBA Safety Trainers. Thank you all for joining us. As you can see, your mics are all muted, but you will be able to engage with us this afternoon through polls, chat, and the Q&A. Note where the chat and Q&A are located. Please use the chat option as an area that will allow a variety of you to share your questions, thoughts, and ideas with each other. At the end of the webinar content, we will go through all the questions you have typed into the Q&A box, so please add your questions as they come up. The polls will pop up throughout the webinar. They will be on a time limit, and once they have closed, we will post the results, and Darcy will be able to use the results in conjunction with her webinar content. We do have an hour and 15 minutes set aside for this webinar today, and if you have joined us for the last 3 episodes, you know we have so much content to cover. As we stated in the initial webinar, these episodes are a deeper dive into the specifics. I am gonna just jump ahead because this is long-winded and let you know that we are videoing today and we will get this out to you as soon as possible. So without further ado, Darcy, take us away.
All right, thanks everyone on this gorgeous Friday before a long weekend. So I want to preface again, what is the expectation of today? What are you going to walk away with? I want to start off by saying, I have created 68 slides in this PowerPoint, but hold on, don't freak out yet. We're going to get you outside. I am not going to use and go over every single slide. You're all anxious to get this deck, the slide deck and the recordings. I put them in so that you can continue to educate yourself. I put them in so that you have direct access and links. As we've been kind of sharing with you, sorting through all of this stuff and finding it all in one place, it doesn't exist. You have to go to multiple places to get all the information. So I went through, pulled all the information together, and I thought, oh, you know what? I'm going to put all the slides into the deck so that when you get it, it's in one place and it gives you guys a really good starting point. So when I start skipping slides, please don't panic. You didn't miss anything. It's there as a support and additional resources for you when it's time for you to kind of revisit this and look at it for your organization, okay? So sometimes no news is good news. Yay! There are no major updates or changes that have happened between yesterday and today that I need to talk to you about. So rest assured, though, that we will, however, continue to communicate with you and provide you updates and changes long after this series is over if you stay connected with Mass MEP. Also, I promised I would have an answer to the less than 25% office space and manufacturing and for the partition question, and we don't have the information that I wanted to be able to share with you. And so we're not going to speculate or make interpretations. I want to wait to hear clear definitions and so that we deliver it without confusion to you. So that will also be shared with you at a later date as soon as we have clarification through Mass MEP. All right. Resources available to you. These are the standards. Again, look at all the check boxes. We have one on this page, one of the standards on this page, sanitation we're covering today. And on the last page, second page or 8th page, all check boxes except for housekeeping and hazardous communication. Those are the 3 things that we're focusing on. Although there are only 3 standards, my slide deck, as I mentioned, is 68 slides long. This is about disinfecting. Remember, it's about new terminology. We've all been cleaning, but now we need to also add in disinfecting into the process. And what disinfecting is, it's that invisible virus, bacteria, the germs that we cannot see that require specific chemicals to be used in order to kill those viruses or bacteria. In this case, we're talking about a pandemic related to COVID-19. Cleaning, very important in the process. You'll understand that when you clean, you take away some of the germs. And so cleaning takes away some of the germs. Disinfecting basically kills and gets rid of the rest. So definition-wise, that's why we potentially do both. After 5 webinars with me, I don't want you guys to lose sight of this. This is the foundation for your choices and your decisions and each of these components that we've been learning and talking about. So today, same concept is going to hold true using the hierarchy of controls. The chemicals that you choose off the EPA website, some are more harsh than others. Some are sprays, some are gels, some are foams, some are wipes. Is there a difference between a spray and a wipe? Absolutely. If you go to the hierarchy of controls, is there more risk to me, the employee, if I'm spraying something than if I'm just using the chemical as a wipe? Absolutely. And so that is a clear example of your hierarchy of controls. Can we eliminate that chemical? Can we substitute for a less harsh chemical? What are the engineering controls? Well, we're not going to use spray bottles. We're going to go with wipes, mop and bucket situations. What are the tools we're going to be using in this process? Warning signs. Well, we have to have posters everywhere. And kind of today's joke for me is we're posting things all over the place, kind of like a 13-year-old girl's room. She's got posters and pictures everywhere. Well, that's kind of what our facilities are starting to look like right now. And then administratively, what are the rules? How often are we cleaning? Who's cleaning? What the PPE that they need to have on it? Airflow, opening windows, opening doors. We're not going to have bleach and ammonia in our building. We're only going to have bleach or ammonia because using both poses a huge risk or hazard to our employees. So use this hierarchy of controls, again, when you and your team start to talk about cleaning and disinfecting in the workplace. These are a little tips board, and what I want you to show you here is I've highlighted the word correct hand washing. So I need to drive home a point in this presentation today. It's not enough for you to say, Darcy, as an employee, you need to wash your hands. It's not enough for me to just put a sign up or a poster up that says, wash your hands, and this is how you wash your hands. There's actually a directive that you are going to train your employees in hand washing. So that might be reading the poster. It might be showing them. So I can take an antibacterial gel. I'm here. I got it. I can take an antibacterial gel, squeeze that into my hand, and I can demonstrate between your fingers, rubbing it, fingernails, getting rid of all your jewelry. When you're rinsing your hands, you rinse your hands down in the sink so stuff runs off, not up so it doesn't run back at you. We talk about whether you guys are using dryers and paper towels. You literally have to walk through a process of teaching your employees exactly what the expectation is. Don't just tell them it's 20 seconds. We did this in the hierarchy of controls. I've re-put it into this slide deck so that when you are reviewing this, you don't have to go back to webinar number 3. You can have the controls in this PowerPoint that we discussed related to hazardous communications and housekeeping. So we've reviewed this already. It's in here for your reference. Let's jump right into the, meat and potatoes, as my grandmother says, of the training. This is your standard, right? So related to housekeeping. First responsibility, number 1, choose your chemicals. What chemicals are you guys going to use for cleaning? What chemicals are you using for disinfecting? Have you actually gone to the website and clicked on the link so that you can get and look up, let me see, the EPA, here we go, the link for the EPA approved sites, okay? So you just click here and you go and you can scroll through all the options. I already did a little homework for you. One of the things I did is I went and got some everyday chemicals that hopefully you guys can get access to, that you don't need to use a third-party commercial supplier to them. all of these chemicals are approved on the EPA website as disinfectants for using in your building. The bottom two, if you're not familiar with the bottom two on the list, this is what I use with a lot of my occupational health, physical therapy clinics, fitness centers, gym facilities. By the way, time out. If you have a fitness center inside your manufacturing facility, you need to operate that and function like under the fitness center rules, which means it's not open right now. And then when it does open, in terms of cleaning and so on, you want to look at obviously clearly what the disinfecting protocols are going to be, and if people are using that room, who's going to be doing it, and there's going to be a whole bunch of rules going back into your fitness center inside your building. But the bottom ones are kind of usually my health care related facilities, and of course you guys know all the other ones, easy to be used. But is there a difference between bleach products and ammonia products? Absolutely. If you read a safety data sheet, you all know that you cannot put bleach and ammonia together. However, you cannot assume that your employees know that. So when you guys are going to do the training associated with whoever is doing the cleaning and disinfecting, you must train them in the risks and hazards of having both an ammonia product in the building and a bleach product. We have had facilities, janitor, custodial staff die as a result of lack of education, lack of training in the company. Nobody showed them where the safety data sheets. Nobody told them how to read a safety data sheet. Nobody told them that they couldn't take bleach and ammonia and pour it into the same bucket and use it to clean and disinfect, okay? So first thing that you guys need to do is choose the chemicals, go to the EPA website, see that they're approved and that they're good to go. Then you need to what? Get the safety data sheet for them, okay? If you're using household, regular, everyday chemicals, you know, the manufacturers, you can go online, you can get those too. So if you're using like a soft scrub or scrubbing bubbles that I saw, or, you know, your Clorox bleaches, we use those in our training classes all the time, Clorox bleach safety data sheets. What is it? For those of you who are not familiar with this, maybe safety isn't your, you know, you haven't been 100% on board with safety, but now you are being invited into the safety arena in your manufacturing facility. These are documents that come from the manufacturer who made the chemical. There are 16 sections. It's universal. Every chemical has the same document with 16 sections, titled the exact same way. You'll see it right here on this PowerPoint. And in each one of these sections, it gives you all the information as an owner of a company, as a manager of safety, as part of the pandemic team. It gives me everything I need to know about how do I protect the employees in my company who are using these products. Not only how do I protect them while they're using it, how do I protect them while I'm storing it? Where can I store it? Is there special fire considerations, sprinkler systems, fire extinguishers? What are the first aid measures? Should someone drink it, breathe it, you know, wash up with it? What would we do while we wait for those professionals to arrive? Also, if there was an emergency, the manufacturer's information is here so that you could call and find out what you need to know. Think about it this way. There are hundreds of thousands of chemical compositions out there, and your poison control center can't know everything there is to know about every single one of them. And if I'm on the way to go to the hospital in the emergency room, if you have these safety data sheets readily available and you can give me a copy to the EMT paramedics to go, it gives them what they need so that they're not just treating me from a signs and symptoms standpoint. Let me just bullet point out and remind you, if you forgot or you were unaware, safety data sheets need to be accessible to your employees during all hours of operation. If you have them electronically, it means every employee needs to be able to log in and get them. If they're still in the paper binder, they need to be updated. Every year you'd have to have an updated revision, new. Sometimes chemicals change. They don't tell you. You just keep buying them. They don't be like, oh, we changed the composition. So you constantly have to make sure your safety data sheets are accurate. How do you know if you have an outdated one? If you go open the book up and it says material safety data sheet, that's a clue. Material safety data sheets are long gone now. We're only using safety data sheets. Additionally, safety data sheets, if you stop using the chemical today, so we're in a pandemic, you're going to use this chemical. Maybe you decide to find one that's less harsh in the future. Maybe decide to go from a spray to a wipe. Whatever chemicals you are using in your company today, those safety data sheets, don't ever throw them out. Don't ever get rid of them. Why? Because as an employee working for you using this chemical, You are required by law to keep the safety data sheet even after I leave your company. How long? Put it up in the chat box. Anyone have a guess? It's not 5 years. It's not 10 years. It's not 15 years. 30 years after I leave your company, you have to keep those safety data sheets in the event that I come back or my attorneys come back or someone comes back and they say, hey, what chemicals was Darcy using? What was she exposed to? What did you do with it? So you can't get rid of safety data sheets. So just create an inactive file and a currently active file. I have some manufacturing companies where employees have worked 50 plus years. OSHA was hardly around back then. So imagine 50 years ago, the same guy working in your company today, he wasn't using PPE. There was no ventilation. Like, they were still smoking in manufacturing, okay, while they were doing work back then. So you've got to keep your safety data sheets. It's a critical piece of information for you. If you need more help on this, reach out. We'll walk you through the process. Now I have a question for you. Who's going to do your cleaning? Because in the hierarchy of controls, you can stop listening to this webinar almost. You can almost stop listening to this webinar if you tell me that you're hiring another company to do all of your cleaning and disinfecting. Because the company that you're hiring needs to watch this webinar. The company that you're hiring, you need to hold accountable to all the things that we're talking about in this webinar. That's called elimination. And if you can't eliminate or you're not eliminating and you're doing some version of this in-house, then here we go. Now we're going to be talking about it. And this popped up. So your polls, quickly, you guys already answered it. It says that 65% of you are doing the cleaning in-house. Those of you who are the 27% are doing it outsourcing, pay attention, because this is what you should be requiring of your third party. Why should we be requiring it of your third party? Because of this multi-employer work site. Do you remember hearing me say in a previous webinar that already in Oregon, a company was fined for having other businesses on their property, shared workspace, common areas, subcontractor, independent contractor relationships. And those other companies weren't doing what they were supposed to, and the host company was fined for not having everyone on board. If you hire the cleaning company and they are not, so down the bottom right here, kind of get all these people coming on, but we're just talking about the cleaning company. You hire that cleaning company, and if you don't have rules and regulations and documentation from them and expectations, and you are expected to check up on them, inspect that they're actually doing what they say that they're going to do for you. So I'm going to put this into the slide deck. We went through this once before. Use this as a reference. If you're hiring a third party to do your cleaning, pre-qualifying questions, check to make sure that they don't have fines on the OSHA website. Make sure you have copies of all their professional licenses. Make sure that they've done their HAZCOM training. Make sure they've done their PPE training. Make sure they've done all their COVID-19 pandemic training, signs, symptoms, hand washing, cough etiquette, sneeze etiquette. You want to see that they've done all that before you bring them into your building. That's why we're calling it a COVID site safety plan. Anyone that I'm hiring a vendor to come into my building, they need to pre-send me this plan so I know that they actually have been paying attention to what's going on in the world outside of their world, and that it's safe for me to bring them in so that they don't potentially create a hazard or infect my staff under the pandemic. Safety data sheets. What chemicals are your third-party people bringing in? Are they EPA approved? Do they have safety data sheets? Have them send the safety data sheets in advance to you. I don't want you guys to hire a third-party company who goes out and chooses some crazy chemical and not an EPA-approved chemical. They clean it this weekend. You all show up on Tuesday morning and everyone's sick, nauseous, has headaches because no one checked on and asked or got safety data sheets from their third party who's doing the cleaning, okay? So if you're doing it yourself, this is all the stuff that you guys need to do. So we're going to go through each of these components today pretty quickly. Again, I have a robust slide deck for you, but these are all the areas that we're going to be talking about. So here, let's start off with the CDC. These are bullet points that I pulled literally from the CDC's website. So first of all, underneath the cleaning and disinfecting, they want you to pay attention and communicate with your state and local Department of Public Health when it comes to disinfecting guidelines. You need to have an entire routine, process, written out procedure. What happens when I am positive and I'm in your building? Or I go home and I call you up and tell you that I'm positive and I was in your building yesterday, the day before. What does the emergency disinfecting and cleaning process look like? That all has to be mapped out as well. The education and training piece is clearly laid out on this page. It talks to you. Have you done your hazardous communications training? CDC is now talking about the OSHA training. Have you done your hazardous communications training? Have you done your bloodborne pathogens training? Have you taught your employees? Have you written the policy to protect your workers? And then have you trained them and actually how to do the cleaning on site? And you'll see a bullet point, again, talking about training of PPE. The reason the front office staff is wearing the PPE, the masks, is not the same as what the PPE is that we put on because we're disinfecting. Your employees need to know the difference between how that mask helps you or doesn't when you are sitting at your desk versus how it helps you or hurts you if you're cleaning your desk. Okay, you've got to differentiate between the two. So your PPE, personal protective pieces of equipment, how to put it on, how to take it off, what does it do, the limitations of it, which ones am I supposed to wear when I clean, when I don't. By the way, how do we know what personal protective pieces of equipment are required for me to be wearing while I'm cleaning in your building? Manufacturer's guidelines. The manufacturer is the one that tells us what we're supposed to do. Where do you get that information? You get it out of the safety data sheet. You read that section and it tells us in section 8, PPE. What PPE under what circumstances do I need to wear? You might choose a chemical that requires you to be in a respirator or a respirator under certain circumstances. So you should read a safety data sheet before you go and buy chemicals. I don't want you guys to create more cost and more hazards and more risks in your building because this was the only chemical you could get. So you ordered it, it was at a reasonable price, and you get the safety data sheet and you go, oh my God, what did I do? Look at all the things that we are required to do because of this chemical falls into the hazardous chemical situation here. So again, here's a section on hazardous chemicals. Hazardous chemicals comes out of your HAZCOM, your safety data sheets. They tell you what chemicals go into hazardous chemicals. Basically, if you can't drink it, breathe it, and wash up with it without getting potentially hurt or sick, it's a hazardous chemical. But OSHA creates these limits, permissible exposure limits. All the chemicals, how much can I use, how often can I use it, and under what circumstances does it become a risk? Those are called PEL limits. I've given you this slide so that you can check against the charts based on what you're doing and how you're doing it in your building. All right, I'm going to take you through hazardous communications. There's 2 parts to the training. So what do I have to do in a hazardous communications training, Darcy? Great question. In a hazardous communications training, you're required to teach your employees about how to read the labels, how to write labels, and everything they need to know about a safety data sheet. That is like step 1 in hazardous communications. Just so you know, OSHA, if you go to their website and they show up in manufacturing or any industry for that matter, the number 2 most cited, most fined, most found standard that you guys are breaking is hazardous communications. So please get comfortable and familiar with this, especially with everything going on in the pandemic. The bottom slide is a great slide because you have to have a written program on hazardous communications. You need to do training related to hazardous communications. You obviously have to have certain materials and equipment and supplies in order for your employees to do, or your third party. There needs to be labeling on the containers so we know what chemicals are in what bottles, and then your safety data sheet. So this little pie chart in the bottom corner is a great guide as you and your team sit down and say, do we have a written program? Let's read it. Have we done training yet? What did we do in our training? When was the last time we did our training? Do we need to update that training? It's also going to talk to you about your labeling. If you are going to BJ's and buying BJ size containers, or if your third party that you've purchased your chemicals from can only send you big jugs because we are in a supply shortage, and they can't send you smaller individual bottles or containers of wipes. If you can't get the individual containers and you have to pour something into another container, that's called secondary labeling. And under secondary labeling, you have to have a process and a plan to put in place on how the labels are being corrected. I don't care, again, if you take a black Sharpie marker and write bleach, and then you draw pictures on it and write danger, and then write cautionary statements like do not drink, severe burning. Where, again, are you getting that information? You take it off the safety data sheet. You don't have to write everything on a safety, the 16 sections on a safety data sheet. We're not taking 16 sections and writing it on a secondary container that we're using around our company. There are small criteria: the name of the chemical, a signal word, some hazard statements, and the pictures. So if you look at this slide in the top left-hand corner, you see 3 pictures. All of you right now should be able to tell me what those 3 pictures mean. And if you don't, then we need to do a better job in our hazardous communications training. The first symbol is, that means ammonia, it catches on fire. The picture at the top, that means you can die from this, right? Die. So therefore, it might not say today or tomorrow, but you gotta go look up under what circumstances does that happen. And the third picture that you see, it's 2 test tubes. That means it's corrosive. It's an acid. Eats through your clothes, eats through your skin. If you're using this product, you probably want to read the safety data sheet and teach your employees the right way to use it. Because if it's got a common household name on it, people are more comfortable. And I'm telling you, what you did with mom and grandma at home cannot apply to the workplace. We can't do what we've been able to do at home. There are rules and there are guidelines, and we have to protect our employees when it comes to hazardous communications, secondary labeling, chemicals that we bring in, and so forth. All right, next section in this about cleaning and disinfecting is, as I mentioned to you, PPE. So we're wearing PPE to protect my cough, my spit, my drool from getting on your desk or in your breathing zone so you don't suck it in, right? PPE, when we're talking about it related to disinfecting, you need to go to section 8 of the chemicals that you've chose, look up and figure out what PPE they're telling you you need to do. Then you're going to go to the hierarchy of controls, because again, if you're using a spray or a gel, my question is can you move down to like a Sani cloth wipe, which is an EPA approved product, because everyone knows about Clorox, and so these are sold out. I would prefer you to go to wipes, obviously, than a spray or a gel. Also with the spray, that means you're probably taking a big bottle of something and pouring it into spray bottles. That process is risky. That process requires a procedure. Are we doing it in a utility closet with no ventilation? Are we gowning the person up? Do they have to wear a splash guard shield over their face while they're pouring it in? Maybe we have to use a funnel. Can we order something from a supplier? Again, supply chain challenges right now, where it's a pre-filled box with a tube or a hose, so that we're not pouring a jug into a tight little funnel. All engineering controls to decrease the hazard of me getting it on my skin or me getting splashed. Now, when you're getting and choosing the PPE, what you guys are currently using for just protection against the pandemic, when it comes to disinfecting, probably isn't going to be enough. You don't all have to wear gloves all day long, but your chemicals that you're using more than likely is going to require you to use some version of a glove. By the way, one size does not fit all. If you're going to use a non-latex kind of glove, right, we need to make sure that when we put the gloves on, that those gloves fit you, and not just you, but anyone else. And we can't have them too big so that they're falling off. We can't have them so tight that we're busting out of them. So we are required at no cost to our employees to provide the right PPE for the right job, for the right response of, right response. If you are struggling, if you're challenged with this and you don't know what PPE to purchase or where to get it, again, reach out to your Mass MEP consultants. On our website, we have some recommended PPE providers as well to kind of help you, but you've got to get the right PPE for the right job. The World Health Organization, I'm going to leave this slide in here, this slide deck for you, but it's really good about describing when you're doing the training. So if you guys are using the surgical mask or even using a cloth mask, you'll see that it talks about a metal piece at the bridge of the nose. When you put these on, you're actually supposed to be able to bend it around your nose. I watch people, what are they doing? They're just sticking it on their face. They're sticking it on their face, and look at how much space there is up here. Nobody's taking the metal piece and going like this. Look at the difference. Now my glasses won't fog up. because I put it on correctly. If you have people in your company walking around with foggy glasses, then it tells you they don't have the mask on the right way. So you've got to actually almost teach your people about the foggy glasses mask trick, or something that communicate to them what is the right way to wear your PPE and not the right way. Because if we're using PPE and we're not using it the right way, then how is it really protecting us? As company, we have to describe that and explain them. The other thing too is you guys have to actually teach your people how to take gloves off. Okay, so you're like, oh, you just pull them off, Dar. But there are ways in terms of taking your mask off, and ways that you guys are gonna have to teach your people how to take the gloves off, so that when you go to take it off, you don't actually ever touch your skin. And if you don't touch your skin and you don't touch anything on the outside, then you didn't contaminate yourself. The reason I have you wearing the gloves is so you don't get anything on your skin. And if we don't teach you the right way to get rid of it, take it off and throw it away, then in that process, guess what we run the risk of? You getting contaminated along the way. This is a slide deck for you as well. It's a resource that we pulled off for you that basically talks about if you guys are a company that's using cloth masks, it's something for you to educate yourself and learn about cloth masks. Of course, the guideline now on cloth masks is they want you to have at least 2 layers. You don't have to, but you may or may not, have a filter inside that, but it still has to be secured. It still has to fit. So again, learning a little bit more, stay up to date with what's going on with PPE, but whatever the safety data sheets are telling us and whatever's available to you. So if you don't have things that are available to you, then we might have to use alternatives, right? We have to make substitutions, but we can't just not have PPE if it's required of us and just say, we'll figure it out as we go. We've got to have a plan related to this. Again, in terms of masks versus a dust mask versus a KN95 from China versus an N95, if you have anything that looks like a respirator in your building, or if you already made a decision to buy respirators, then you must look at the respiratory protection program requirements under OSHA. There are no exemptions from any of you manufacturers. There are none. The only people that get an exemption are the healthcare people. So if you have an N95 mask in your building, maybe your lead blowers and your maintenance people have it because of the silica dust, maybe your grinders, welders, or aerosol spray cans, the guys decided to go buy these in case the paint was bothering them, or you bought them or started to use them because you had a lot of them for the pandemic. If you've got employees in N95 masks, please go read the respiratory standard. I put this slide in next, where you guys can go and read everything that you need to know and get guidance and direction and understanding of what it means to be using respirators in your building versus using a dust mask or a mask or a face covering or a surgical mask. They are different. This is your bullet point to talk to you again about your training. So the PPE that you're going to be using for disinfecting, you're going to bring that team together and train them on the disinfecting use of PPE. I bulleted out clearly all the components of the training. So make sure you have the equipment there, make sure you have enough to fit everyone, the right sizes, and then you need to show them how to put it on, show them how to take it off, show them how to clean it, how to store it, how to replace it, at what point do they replace it, who do they get it from in terms of replacement. And you need to put all of that together in your PPE plan. And because we're in a pandemic and the COVID-19, if you already have a PPE policy written, add this addendum, right? Put in the extra page just talking about these bullet points related to a pandemic. Here's your cleaning and disinfecting guideline. I'm going to go through it quickly with you right now, but this is the link to get the information of what I'm talking about. The call to action, the written documentation, the plan and training that you need to do around disinfecting also includes who are your emergency response disinfecting team. Okay, so someone who's tested positive and then they've been in the building or are in the building and leaving the building, you need to close off that area. You potentially open doors and windows if it's safe to do so, right? It talks about ventilation and circulation. This all comes off the CDC website. If you can wait 24 hours, they want you to wait 24 hours before you clean that area. Probably not practical in a manufacturing setting, but you're gonna have to use cones and caution tape and section it off so your cleaning team can get in there. And then after it's been cleaned and disinfected, not only the space I was working in, but all the other spaces where I potentially have been. So if I come in at 7 o'clock in the morning and we find out by 11 o'clock and I leave the building for lunch and I tell you I didn't go to the break room, I didn't go into the bathroom, I didn't, right? It's about finding out where are all the spaces, the common spaces, not just my workstation that Darcy was at today, because the emergency cleaning isn't just my desk. It isn't just my workstation. It isn't just my utility closet, if I'm going to, or my tools room or whatever department I'm in. It's all the rooms and spaces that I've been to. And so you got to have a quick response to that, because you got to clean that before the next break, or you got to clean that before the next lunch group, and you got to clean that, right? So you've got to have a response ready to go when it comes to disinfecting. Vacuuming. So some of you have vacuum cleaners and some of you have, carpeted rugs. Again, whether you're doing it or third parties doing it, you want to be talking to them about HEPA filters. And we probably don't want to be vacuuming and stirring things up while other people are in that space. So you need to either remove those people from the space while the cleaning is being done, or you wait until those individuals, aren't there. I'm not sure how it's going to run for you. I'm a hierarchy of controls, putting your own plan together, but you got to figure out the things that you never thought about before. If your office has drapes and curtains, okay, there's a section here in the CDC that talks about the non-porous areas of cleaning things and how we're disinfecting. After the areas have been cleaned, anyone who's not been in contact with me can go back to work. For those of you who've been in contact with me, you probably will be notified, and then will obviously be a next step based on your company's policy. If I've been in the building and then I decide to leave, because we have a 4-day weekend right now, some people, 3 days for some of us and 2 for others. But if we're out of the building and then I call you on Tuesday and I tell you that I tested positive or someone in my family tested positive and I was obviously in the building 4 days ago, they've actually put a number in here. If it's been 7 days, you guys don't have to do cleaning. But if it's less than 7 days, we've got to what? Disinfect. So they've actually given you a guideline and a standard around that, which is great. I highlighted this whole slide. This whole slide is important. I need you to read this whole slide. I need you to get comfortable with this whole slide, because this slide talks about gloves. It talks about masks. It talks about using it with trash. Here's the other thing. You probably don't have coveralls or gowns or aprons that you've had in place for cleaning and disinfecting. Again, I'm pulling this stuff right off of CDC's recommendations. You have to decide, does that make sense based on our hierarchy controls, based on all the rules we put in place, based on the equipment, based on the kind of chemicals, the delivery system of our chemicals, and or your third party. So remember, I'm not saying and third party after every single one of my sentences right now, but these are all the things that you need to be asking of your third party. Are they wearing gowns? Are they wearing masks? Are they having coveralls? Are they going to have laundry? Are they taking the laundry out of the building with them? Are they taking their gowns off, and where are they disposing of them? Do we come in on the next morning and there's like a trash can overflowing with, gowns and gloves and from the cleaning crew from the night before? Like, that's not fair to the rest of us either. So you've got to take a look at the kind of the plan or the big picture behind what we're asking people to do. Here's your description on hard porous surfaces. You'll see in highlight, it says follow manufacturer's instructions. No matter what cleaning agent you're using, follow manufacturer's instructions. I highlighted this area for those of you who are considering to use bleach, because bleach is readily available to all of us right now. But if you're using bleach in a bleach and water solution, I wanted you to have this detailed information that's coming right off the CDC's website about how you're mixing it, what are the ratios, how long is it effective? Bleach solutions will be effective for disinfecting for 24 hours. What does that mean, Darcy? That means you can't make a big bottle of bleach and water solution on Monday and use it for the entire week. You kidding me? No, I'm telling you, every day, someone has to make a new solution of bleach and water. Don't shoot the messenger, pulling it right off of CDC's website. So this is something childcare industry has been doing forever, because they deal with kids and colds and flus and runny noses all the time. Now it's transitioning to all of us in terms of general public. Also, I put a thing down, drying mops, brushes, and cloths. If we're wet mopping things, the idea is those should dry out. They shouldn't sit in a bucket of water in the cleaning room. We should have to empty that out. It should dry out. Pathogens love wet stuff, and we want to make sure that we're not breeding any more pathogens anywhere. I'm not saying COVID-19, but I'm saying just in general, good best practices. This is going to talk to you about the porous surfaces having to do with laundry. If you can eliminate laundry out of your life right now in manufacturing, in your workplace, eliminate laundry if you can. If not, you got to put the protocol into play. And then I want you to also think about, like, in your mechanic tool rooms, those guys have rags, usually oil rags or different things that they use. I mean, where are those stored? How are those being taken care of? Clearly, they're not washing them in the laundry. Ultimately, when they're too nasty, they throw them out. But you know, what are we doing with those? We got to look at all the corners of our building right now with a fine-tooth comb and kind of, like, again, a different set of glasses. Don't you go check on your department, have someone else go check your department, tell them what to look for. And if you're checking each other's department and you know what it is that you're looking for, believe me, you'll unveil and find things that I wouldn't have. Why? Because I'm in my department all the time, and I walk around like this with a massive to-do list, and I'm not seeing things because this is always right here on my desk. I just walk by it. It's just always there. If it wasn't there today, maybe I notice it. Maybe I notice it a couple days from now. But when you're in the environment all the time, it's hard to see the details. So make sure you guys are switching off places. Electronics, it's giving you recommendations on how to clean electronics. Here's your linens and cloth and laundry. It's giving you guidance, direction from the CDSET website about what to do. Labeling laundry, right? Cleaning and disinfecting those containers, just like cleaning and disinfecting trash cans if we're not using liners, and of course trash cans with covers. What does all that look like in your model? So let's jump into sanitation, point 141. Hang in there, you guys, we're on a home stretch. How many bathrooms? I had a company, one of my clients say, Darcy, my people don't want to clean all these bathrooms, and we have more bathrooms than what we are required to have. Can I shut down some of the bathrooms so we're only focusing on 2 bathrooms, one for the guys, one for the girls, and all the other ones we're not using? Yep. If you follow the guidelines and follow the rules and you still meet all the compliance stuff, then you can shut down some of your bathrooms. If you guys are thinking, maybe we want to do the same thing, I don't know. Here's the details to help you make those decisions on what you're doing with the bathrooms. Just remember, there are rules behind bathrooms. Hot and cold running water, you got to have soap, got to have a way for them to dry in their hands. I will tell you, I am a hygiene crazy person. This is an opinion. I'm going to warning, this is Darcy's opinion. So I will never use a blower in a bathroom, okay, to dry my hands. I will air dry my hands all day long. And as I was doing this research, because I wanted to justify my craziness about not using, poop blowers, as I call them, in the bathroom, the CDC basically didn't confirm or deny exactly what I was saying. But I put a link here because the CDC says that based on all their research, the best way to dry your hands is with a towel, like a disposable towel, or air dry. So they, again, resources for you to look it up. What's your trash? Again, are you third-partying trash? Is there someone in your building who's managing trash? Are you gonna have everyone in their office staff take care of their own trash and throw it away and tie it out? Are we gonna let it overflow? What's the rules on how high it overflows? Are we putting covers on it? OSHA's recommendation really doesn't want you to have trash cans with open tops, which a lot of us do, and they don't want you pushing them all over the building. So can we narrow that down or simplify that in some place? We're not talking about regulated trash. We're talking about unregulated trash. Your food, your paper goods, those kinds of things that are in the break room, not your hazardous stuff in terms of the pieces of art. What about in trucks and vehicles? If you guys have commercial vehicles, who's cleaning the trash out of there? I mean, I love a lot of my guys, but the truth is I find coffee cups and, yesterday's McDonald's wrappers or whatever the case may be. We've got to train all of them. They got to pick all that up themselves. They might have to be disinfecting, cleaning their own truck, especially if there's a shared responsibility versus individuals. So you really got to talk trash. You guys got to have these conversations about what makes sense or doesn't make sense. So I've given you cut and paste. Remember, whenever you see these numbers, that's out of the OSHA's standard or law for trash and sanitation. And this first paragraph talks about the solid waste, your coffee cup and crinkling up papers. And the bottom one talks about you throwing out your banana peel and what you do after lunch. So these are going to give you recommendations and guides to follow. We talked about hand washing. I told you guys today, we can't just say, hey, you got to wash your hands for 20 seconds. We really have to deep dive into this. And you have to, in your policy, see at the bottom of the slide, it's got bullet points out. This comes from the CDC. After blowing your nose, coughing, sneezing, after going in the bathroom, after eating or preparing food, after contact with animals and pets, it tells you in the CDC, bullet. I want you to wash your hands after. Guess what we have to do as a company? We got to create a one-page sheet. We got to train our people. I want you to wash your hands, ... and list out all the things that you want me to wash my hands. I am not doing all of these slides. I am, however, giving them to you as a resource, and I'm summarizing right here. The National Fire Prevention Association, mentioned them a few times. They're not a law. They're not a regulatory agency. They're an association that has super credibility. They basically control the life safety code, right? So they're not OSHA's law, but OSHA points to them in terms of being experts when it comes to fire. I've mentioned a few times that you are all bringing hand sanitizer into your building. I have provided you links. I have provided you videos on YouTube, all done by the NFPA, talking about the flammability of hand sanitizer and that you actually have to train your people and talk to them about the risk. It can be combustible at air. So I have hand sanitizer right now. Is it going to burst into flames? No, but at room temperature, adding a heat source, kind of like the smoking example I told you, right? When someone's smoking with their hands, or if you put it next to an electrical box, or you have it out on the shop floor and it's hot, or someone's doing welding and a spark, could it catch on fire? Yes, it's primed to catch on fire. All it needs is an ignition source. So you have to pay attention to where you're putting these dispensers. Are you putting them next to light switches, hanging them on the walls? I mean, where are they throughout your facility? So that's basically the summary on this page. And then I've given you all of these other slides that give you direction on what to do with your hand sanitizer. How many can you put in a hallway? What's the distance? How many can you put next to each other? No more than 5 gallons stored. Then it's got to go in a flammable cabinet. How much can I have outside around my property? Around my facility. I've given you the answers to the questions that are most commonly asked, and I've also given you all the cited references so you can click on it and read it yourself. Brings us to training, and we're wrapping up right here. So brings us to training, and in terms of training, on the left-hand side are all the new stuff that every single one of us have to do, because none of us were doing hand washing and coughing and sneeze etiquette weeks ago. So everything on the left are all new stuff that we have to do. Based on everything I just told you today, here's all the new training or retraining that you need to do on the right-hand side, all listed out for you. I just put this up as a link. The EPA, a lot of people have been asking me about these UV lights as scanners or, as effective disinfecting tools. So I'm not giving you my opinion. I copied and pasted this right out of CDC in case you're thinking about buying them or purchasing them. I want you to be an educated consumer and consider what you're considering, and start here at the EPA site and CDC on learning more whether or not these are effective or not. All right, Christy, we got there.
Woo! I'm back. I'm still laughing about you fogging up your glasses.
you like my breathing? I'm Darth Vader. I am your father. Like, we're all walking around being super silly with them, but how do we know? We got to do it. What's the test? What's the check? We got to have something that makes sense to you and I. And if you're walking around with foggy glasses, that's a pretty good indicator.
Not working. No condensation. Well, we got a lot of good questions here. Thank you so much, Darcy. Day number 5, Friday, long weekend. We might get a little punchy, but we're going to get through these questions for you. So the first one I have from John, what about chlorine dioxide?
Yes. So what about it? So here's the thing. If it's on EPA's, because I didn't go look, but if it's on EPA's website as approved disinfectant, then yes, you can use it. Now, just because it's there doesn't mean you should. So then you have to pull out the safety data sheet, read the 16 sections, and know what the expectation is around using that chemical. Then, if you like it and you like it, then you go to the next thing that says, go to OSHA's permissible limits. So again, it's hard because you guys have to go to multiple places. And if you're not used to doing that, there's a bit of a challenge. So EPA says, yes, it'll kill COVID-19. Then you read the safety data sheet and you're like, okay, it's not going to cost me a lot, time, effort, energy, resources to implement this. It's not a super high hazard. You got to decide on that based on your engineering controls, your administrative controls. You're like, okay, we can live with this product. Then you go to the third, which is OSHA's permissible limits. Go to the chart. It's on the chart. What is OSHA saying about what you can and can't do? What the exposure has to be? What's the ventilation have to be? What is the It'll all be there. So you've got to go to multiple resources before you can actually decide if that's something you want to use.
Okay, great. So we have Frederick. Hi, Frederick. I think Frederick's been on for all of our webinars, so thank you very much. He says, good afternoon. Are you familiar with MSDS Online?
Oh, the online system. So let me see if I can answer your question. So safety data sheets, right? We got to get rid of the M. So tell that company if they're still using MSDS, they got to drop the M. But SDSs, as an owner of a company, as a management team, our responsibility to our employees is, I don't care what third party you're using to manage your safety data sheets. Number one, are they managing them? Are they updating them and keeping them accurate to what's in your building? Okay. And are they accessible? OSHA says, are they accessible to your employees? If all your employees cannot log in whenever they need to log in to get it, if they have to go through multiple layers in order to get it, that doesn't work. So you can use any online system you want. Make sure the online system isn't going to get you in trouble, right? That you send them an updated chemical inventory list every year. They match it against your safety data sheets. Every year they're updating those safety data sheets. And then of course, you still have to train in them, but you also need to make sure your employees have access to them. If they're online and not accessible to everyone, guess what? Doesn't meet the requirement. That means you have to go old school, print them out and stick them in the books, or find a way to make them accessible to all your employees.
Okay. Private gyms on site need to be closed? Question mark?
Yeah. So private's not private because once you put a fitness center, so even under Massachusetts law, for example, you might not know this. If you have a fitness center in your manufacturing facility, you better have an AED on the wall. So just because it's inside your private manufacturing doesn't mean that you're exempt from these Massachusetts regulations and laws. So your private fitness center right now is a fitness center. It is a gym. It is a health club. It is a benefit that you're offering to your employees. Now, if you're the only one going, if you own the company and you're the only one using it and it's not accessible to your employees, then it's a different conversation. But if you're making it accessible and your employees can go in and out, then you're going to need to set all these new rules and parameters in place. And technically, again, interpretation, you shouldn't have that open and available for staff right now.
Okay. What questions have to be on the pre-qual questions?
Oh, for the HAZCOM?
Yes.
So if we're talking about pre-qualifying questions around HAZCOM, basically, all the questions I posed to you guys today, if you're going to bring in a third party, all right, you're going to be asking them all of the questions that we've talked about. Have you trained your person? Did you do PPE? Do they actually know how to put it on and off? How are they going to dispose of it? How are we getting rid of the trash? What equipment are they using to actually clean? Are they using liquids? Are they using sprays? Are they using gels? And you just want all that in their safety plan that they're going to be giving to you. Okay, so what's the pre-qualifying question? Hey, Darcy, cleaning company, I want to hire you. Number one, have you done all of the mandatory checklist boxes and signed the poster compliance from the state saying that you are, I can and should hire you, like that you can work? Okay, that's box number one. Then you go to the next box and you say, okay, what have you done for training? Do you have a site plan? So send me the site plan, send me what you've got for training. If there's certifications or cleanings, standards that you want proof of, send those to me. In the pre-qualifying checklist, I need an insurance certificate from you, Darcy, but I don't want you to send it to me. I want you to have your insurance provider actually send it to me so I know that you haven't forged it and it's not really expired. Hey, Darcy, on your W-9, yep, that's like the last thing that you want. And then you're going on your pre-qualifying checklist. It's an internal document that you're using to determine, are there enough green checks on Darcy's sheet of paper for you to hire her? Are there too many X's? Are there too many blank spaces? What risk are you assuming by hiring me, even if you like me? That pre-qualifying checklist is an indicator of how you've made your decision to hire the person.
Okay. Thank you, Darcy. Nicole asks, the early cloth masks that everyone was making and buying do not have the metal piece to form fit around your nose. Are those no longer usable?
So it says that it needs to be formed and fitted. So if you go read, again, sadly, we're just interpreting, and until something gets challenged and gets written down. So again, until how OSHA typically works and Department of Labor works is that when you are confused about a question, you would send it to them, and of course they put it in writing as an interpretation, and once they put it in writing, because they won't tell you over the phone, then you can use that as new law or new guidance and so on and so forth. So the challenge right now is we're using CDC guidelines and recommendations as what's governing choices and decisions that we're making that are kind of being overseen by the government right now. So there are some gray areas. So the CDC's recommendation is 2-ply cloth in a nose piece. It's in writing on, and it's describing the face mask. Back in the beginning, we didn't have a description for the face mask. So if you're asking me in my interpretation would tell you that the face mask that I have right here, that I had someone make for us back in the beginning, was the nurse. And so guess what? She put the bend in it already. All the ones that we have that don't have the bend in them, we have eliminated and removed them from our service.
All right, good answer. And then I think you hit on this one. Do you have to provide masks for employees, or can they use their own? I think we've hit this a couple times.
Okay, so let's use OSHA. Okay, OSHA is the federal law that requires you to create a safe and healthy workplace. It requires you, if you identify a hazard in your company, to get rid of the hazard. If you can't get rid of the hazard, we go through the hierarchy of controls, and at the very bottom, if you as a company still have not gotten rid of the hazard, then you must provide me the PPE at no cost to me. So without saying yes or no, what I'm telling you is, yes, you should not be allowing your employees to bring in their own PPE. Let me also tell you why. Because if we go back to OSHA standard, OSHA will tell you that when you allow your employees to bring in their own tools, their own equipment, their own PPE, like I like my drill better than your drill, okay? You assume the responsibilities under the standard for the PPE, for the tools that you've allowed them to bring in. Are those tools being checked? Are they being inspected? So the PPE that you're letting other people bring in, does it meet your rules? Does it meet the guidelines? Are they cleaning it? Are they storing it? Because you're responsible actually for replacing it, caring for it, training them on it, even if you allow them to bring it outside. You're better off controlling the whole situation because you're responsible for it no matter what, to just do it yourself.
Okay, thank you. This question is based on common spaces that need to be disinfected. Is it just where they went that morning or for the last 2 days?
So that's where the contact tracing comes in. Again, let's interpret it. CDC is saying for the last 48 hours. Where was Darcy for the last 48 hours? In those 48 hours, where did she go and who did she come in contact with? If that's what they're asking of us, then we can make an assumption that the cleaning and disinfecting needs to also follow all of the common spaces and workspaces that I have been in for the last 2 days. Why? Because 2 days is less than 7 days. If it was 7 days, then we wouldn't have to disinfect at all, because it'd be past this imaginary number that they've come up with. But because it's less than 7 days and it's within 2 days of me being, right, which is written out, we would have to disinfect.
Okay. Does the EPA list of approved cleaners contain any safer green cleaners?
No.
Darn it.
Now, with that being said, it also says right on the website that not all, I take that back, Sani cloth, the Sani, S-A-N-I, the Sani products are what we encourage some of our clients to use, especially like ambulance companies, because the requirement for PPE and the safety and the health of it, it is a cleaner, greener product. It'll be nearly impossible for you to get that product. I've already tried, but That is listed on the EPA website, but it also says that not all approved chemicals are listed here. So what you have to do is if you go to a green site like Simple Green, you'd have to call Simple Green up, talk to them, get them to that manufacturer to email you something in writing, right, that shows you that this product does what you need it to do. Okay, it comes from the manufacturer. That's the only person that can ultimately do that.
Okay. Is video training sufficient?
Is video training sufficient depending on the topic? So bloodborne pathogens, which I told you guys how to do, is not allowed to be generic recorded training. It says it right in the OSHA standard. If you're going to do bloodborne pathogens training, it can be like this video. It could be recorded, but you must have someone available for Q&A section in the bloodborne pathogen standard. So if you can show me how to watch a video and have someone physically available to answer the questions of the people in the classroom, then you've complied with the OSHA standard. OSHA writes in certain standards exactly how you have to do the training. It tells you sometimes that some trainings have to be hands-on. You must demonstrate, you must do it. They also say to you that it needs to be about you. So generic training, although a lot of people put videos in, a lot of people talk about the standard or the general overwhelm, those are not OSHA compliant. OSHA wants you to just tell your people what to do with the resources that you have in your building. And people, for some reason, have got this idea that training has to be PowerPoint in a classroom for hours. In the manufacturing world, take a one-piece piece of paper out, bullet point out what you want to do, and just kind of keep reinforcing trainings. Or get a company to read your policy, interpret it with you, and video record a customized training specifically to your company today. But remember, if you make a change, we have to update that video. We got to redo that video because it's not up to date, compliant with what the new rules, regulations, guidelines are in your building. So it makes it challenging sometimes with video.
Okay, and don't forget to get it signed off, right?
Yeah.
Like
so remember in the rosters, if it's not documented, it didn't happen, but you don't have to have employee signatures. So that's a misconception from OSHA. Okay, that every roster doesn't have to be signed by the employee, but we need to know who taught the class, the day, the sign, the start time, end time, what we kind of covered, and who attended.
Okay, this is an interesting one. We have a question about a lactation room. Our office park is unable to supply a room for such now. Would it be okay to use the office of a person that will not be in all 5 days? They will be in sometime though, so what would your advice be?
Yeah, so actually I answered that question in writing and I emailed it back. However, I will tell you this, that's a two-part question. So first part, there's an HR element in there and that's above my pay grade. So number one is you need to find a partner. I mean, we use AIM HR Solutions here with Mass MEP and safety trainers, but you gotta have your HR questions answered first. I'm gonna answer from a health and safety perspective, talking about disinfecting in a pandemic and shared space. The answer to my part of that question is, can we limit the space within your office that she's using? And then of course we have to have a cleaning and disinfecting process before she uses it, so that's clean for her, and then after she uses it, so it's clean for you. So if you're going to share a space for that process, then you've got to put cleaning and disinfecting in place.
Okay. When you use alcohol to disinfect, can we dilute it like when we dilute bleach?
So, no. I've not seen anything to come out yet that says, based on research or studies or testing from CDC, EPA, I've got nothing credible to be able to send you a link that says we can take isopropyl alcohol and dilute it in any kind of concentration. What we do have is we know that it needs to be, is it 60 or 65% or higher, no more than 95%, in order for it to be effective for what we're asking it to do.
Okay. Will there be inspections of machine shops?
Inspections of machine shops. Okay, so let's say, how does someone show up at your door and come check on your company? It's because they got a complaint. Okay, so right now we're self-assessing, we're self-policing, we're self-certifying. If employees in your company or visitors, guests, competitors, someone who walks by your building, comes in your building, decides to call the local health department. So the hierarchy of controls, the hierarchy of command, sorry, is local health, local public health, Department of Public Health, Department of Labor, OSHA. So they will handle it in their own towns and communities, the local public health. They will come in, they will investigate, they might call, they send a letter, they're gonna figure out what's going on, and they will scale it up or make it go away based on how prepared you are when they come knocking at your door.
Okay, we're so close here, just a couple left. As for trash removal, we have one person that goes around the building emptying all the trash in break rooms and offices. Should we be using different barrels in all areas?
Are you using a liner? If you're using a liner, then that container itself isn't getting disinfected. And if everything's inside, right, and not outside, kind of like your gloves, if everything's tucked inside, then we're really not exposing. Do we have a cover off of it, right? So as we're blowing through and creating air and drafts of whatever's in there, have we covered it so we're not pulling it through the entire building? So do I think you need to have, bins for every section of your building? No. If we've got other engineering controls in place, if the things that I kind of mentioned aren't feasible, then maybe we do have barrels in, this department or that department or this department, and we fill everything up in that department, and we fill everything up in that department and over here. And then once a day, at the end of the day, maybe after the majority of everyone's gone, right? Then we collect those barrels and we push them through the building. So whether we have a cover again on them or not depends. Is anyone else still in the building? And are we disinfecting every night? So do we move the barrels through the building and then disinfect after? Like, you got to just think about it kind of almost in a logical process. I like the idea of any kind of liner bags that we can use right now, because you can just pull those things out. You don't have to worry about cleaning and disinfecting, the actual containers themselves. I like the idea of waste paper baskets for everyone in their offices, and they all have liners and they take them out themselves, walk it over to a universal place, right? Put it in, cover on top, and out the door they go. So you got to kind of figure that out. But I think the answer to the question is no, you don't have to go do that. Think about whether or not which way might work better for you. You can be creative.
Okay. All right. And what to do if an employee refuses to use the mask, or they say they cannot use it due to a condition and they cannot be moved to a position with no contact with people? What should we do?
Okay. So again, there's an HR component in here. It's above my pay grade, but here's what I will tell you in terms of, if I have a medical condition, I tell you I have a medical condition and I can't wear the mask, then you can't force me to wear the mask. You can't ask for proof that I have medical condition, okay? Again, I'm crossing over in the gray area of HR. Make sure you get HR consulting. But from a safety perspective, you tell me you can't wear a mask, great. Guess what I'm buying you? A face shield. You're gonna wear a face shield around you, which isn't going to impact your breathing. It's no mask. It doesn't change your respiratory, but it's going to protect you from coughing and sneezing out on other people. And if someone else is less than 6 feet, it keeps it from getting in your eyes, nose, and mouth at the same time. So if you give me the I can't wear it because of the medical piece, then number one, you got to go talk to your HR department. There are rules around that, and AIM actually put out a great piece of a Q&A around that. But from a safety perspective, that doesn't mean that you get to walk around without anything all over the building. It means that you're going to get a safety shield. We're going to limit you to a specific space. We might have to add an additional, cleaning or disinfecting protocol. Maybe that I have to do it myself. But walk through that, because there are solutions to that particular question that have already been challenged and already exist.
Okay, last question. You ready? Where did you get the information for the bar chart comparing different type of masks? 89% for a surgical and 70% for a cotton mask.
I gotta look. That's a good question, but I didn't pull it off of like someone's random site. So let me see if I have it actually at the bottom of it. Let me put my glasses back on. Let me see if I can't see anything without my glasses. I didn't put my cited source on here, so I don't know exactly which. Davies Medical and Public Health posted 2013 comparison chart on particulates related to air filtration and testing for respiratory care. So it's actually in like this light gray piece. So Davies, D-A-V-I-E-S, 2013, disaster medical and public health preparation. What do we do? Like in a pandemic, kind of like, it's not a FEMA, it's not from FEMA, but think of it in that same context. In-date testing. Oh, my other site got cut off. If you need more than that, email me and I will get it to you.
And we did, Matt put in all of our contact information in the chat, so go ahead and please email us. And then, of course, I lied. We have one last question, just flew in. We're going to make this our last question, and then we're going to let everybody go and have their weekend. Do you have to wear a face mask and a face shield?
I'm gonna ask a question with a question. I hate it when people do that to me. You didn't tell me enough of the story. So here's the deal. Hierarchy of controls. Why did you put the face shield on me in the first place? So if you're asking the question, Darcy, can I wear a face shield and not a mask? If that's really the question that you're asking, then the answer is maybe. But the answer is also no, okay? Because basically Massachusetts is saying right now that certain parts of our company in manufacturing, in the back end, because we're walking around, they interpret it as anyone who's in the back end has to be wearing a mask, except if you have a medical condition. Then if you have a medical condition, now we're putting you in a face shield, because a face shield's better than nothing, but they prefer you to be in a mask, okay? So if you're saying, can I do one or the other, then the answer is not right now, because Massachusetts is making all of us wear face shields, indoor, outdoor, and in certain industries. Under the office setting, that was reinterpreted in a different way. So for the office setting who's wearing a mask, if you want to wear a face shield instead of a mask, I'll use the first analogy that says, we want everyone wearing masks. However, in an office setting, when the airplane pilot, shuts off the seatbelt light, just because you can take your seatbelt off and walk around doesn't mean we want you to. So you've got a mask, you're in your own space, you're in your own cubby, you're 6 feet away, or you're in your own office with the door closed. Can you take the mask off? The interpretation to us has been, yes, you can take your mask off. But if you're up moving around the building, we want you to put back that mask on. So again, why are you wearing a face shield? Well, maybe you're wearing a face shield because you're disinfecting and you have to wear a mask at the same time. So if you asked me that question, I would say, yeah, a splash risk of spraying stuff, put a face shield on instead of just regular eye protection, because that really protects you, and keep your mask on underneath. Then the answer to my question would be yes. So it depends on the context, the scenario that you present to me, how to actually answer that question.
Okay. Darcy, that's it. Thank you so much for the past week. It's been amazing. I learned something every single time I'm on with you. We've been tweaking our own stuff as we've gone. As I said, all of our contact information is in the chat. Matt put that into the chat for us. The recording and the presentation will be available to you upon completion of the evaluations. So please make sure that you go on and take the evaluations. And it will be sent to you no later than Tuesday afternoon. Thank you guys all very much and have a wonderful weekend.